Have you ever imagined having a twin sister you never knew, a shadow from your past that suddenly appears to change your destiny? Prepare yourself for a story of mystery, revenge, and surprising revelations. Meet Ora Lua, a lonely girl tormented by relentless bullying at school. But everything changes when she discovers a terrifying secret: her twin sister, Omi, who is willing to deliver justice with her own hands. But revenge comes at a price. Uncover the dark secrets of Ora Lua's family, the betrayals, and the regrets that haunt them. Can love and forgiveness prevail in the face of so much pain? She looked around before abandoning the newborn baby in his hands in the bins. His wife had just given birth to twins after 12 long hours of labor, but one of the babies was deformed. She felt ashamed of the child and couldn't bring himself to raise or associate with such a child. His wife Etunu was too weak after childbirth to know the atrocity her husband had committed. Hours later, when she finally awoke from a deep sleep, she found her husband's tearful gaze. She asked what was wrong. He told her how one of their twins had died a few hours after birth. His wife, Etunu, couldn't believe what she was hearing. She began to cry, questioning her choice to have the baby at home. But she assured her that not having the baby in the hospital wasn't the problem. Etunu immediately asked to see the other twin, and she went to the nursery to get the newborn. When he handed the baby to her, she was even more amazed. "She is so perfect," she said as she kissed the baby's forehead. They named her Ora Lua. 14 years later, Ora Lua had grown into a very beautiful but lonely girl. She grew up in a house full of turmoil and conflicts. The constant arguments between her parents, she and Etunu, mainly due to her father's infidelity, created an atmosphere of tension and sadness that overshadowed every aspect of Ora Lua's life. Despite the material comfort provided by her father's successful career as a plastic surgeon, Ora Lua felt a deep sense of loneliness and isolation. Her mother, who had once been a vibrant and joyful woman, had been reduced to a mere shadow of her former self. The constant betrayals and emotional pain caused by her husband's actions had taken a toll on her spirit, leaving her perpetually in tears and consumed by despair, with no room to pay attention to her daughter. Ora Lua watched helplessly as her mother's light faded, feeling incapable of intervening or offering any comfort in the face of such overwhelming sadness. Her father, on the other hand, seemed oblivious to the suffering he had caused. His focus was exclusively on his work and the image of perfection he sought to create in his patients. He frequently criticized Ora Lua's appearance, pointing out flaws and imperfections that only served to deepen her sense of inadequacy and self-doubt. He made no effort to connect emotionally with his daughter, preferring to discuss cosmetic procedures that could enhance her physical appearance. Ora Lua's only friend was Kik, who was not really a friend. All Kik cared about was showing off the expensive jewelry her wealthy parents gave her or being rude to Ora Lua, telling her that her parents were richer than any other student's parents. Because of this, Ora Lua didn't feel comfortable sharing her problems with Kik. She was friends with her only because she had no one else. As if what she was going through at home wasn't enough, Ora Lua became a target of bullying at school. She dreaded going to school every day, knowing she would have to face a boy named T and his group of bullies, who seemed to take pleasure in tormenting her. It was hard for her to understand why T and his friends chose her for their cruel taunts. She was a quiet, studious girl who mostly kept to herself, yet she became the target of their relentless bullying. It seemed they enjoyed making her miserable, finding new ways to humiliate and ridicule her at every chance they got. One of the most common ways T and his friends bullied Oralua was by tripping her whenever she boarded the school bus in the morning. T would stick his legs out into the aisle, knowing she would have to pass by him to find a seat, and whenever she did, he would intentionally block her path, causing her to stumble and drawing laughter and jeers from the other bullies on the bus. But the bullying didn't stop there. T and his friends found countless ways to make Oralua's life miserable at school. They would throw water sachets into her hair, tear up her notebooks, and steal her belongings, all while laughing and mocking her. Oralua tried to fight back, but it only seemed to make things worse for her. The bullies had free rein to torment her and took full advantage of it. The constant bullying affected Oralua's mental and emotional health. She felt isolated and alone, with no one to turn to for help or support. Her parents were too wrapped up in their own lives to notice the pain she was going through, and the teachers at school seemed oblivious to the torment she was enduring daily. As the days went by, her spirit began to break under the weight of the relentless bullying. She would come home from school with tears in her eyes, her confidence shattered, and her self-esteem in tatters. The once bright and enthusiastic student was now a shadow of her former self, afraid to speak up or stand up to her aggressors. The breaking point came one day during recess when T and his group of bullies stole her bag and tore up all her notebooks. With just a few weeks left before the midterm exams, she knew she would struggle to recover her notes. She cried uncontrollably, feeling defeated and powerless against the relentless bullying. That day, Oralua came home with her face full of tears, but her parents were busy arguing as usual and didn't notice. So, she went to the bathroom and took a hot shower. When she finished, she went to the large bathroom mirror to comb her hair, but something shocking happened. Oralua was brushing her hair, but her reflection in the mirror was smiling at her. When she noticed this, she stopped brushing for a moment, thinking she was hallucinating, only to see the person in the mirror waving and smiling at her. It was at that moment that something clicked in Oralua's brain. The reflection she saw in the mirror was not hers, it was someone else with an identical face to hers. Oralua almost fainted upon realizing this and nearly fell as she ran out of the bathroom to her room as fast as her legs could carry her. Oralua paced back and forth in her room, her heart racing with fear and confusion. She couldn't shake the image of her reflection in the mirror smiling back at her, as if it were a separate entity. She felt like she was losing her mind. How could someone with an identical face to hers exist inside a mirror? It was impossible, but there was no denying what she had seen. As she lay on her bed trying to make sense of it all, Oralua's mind raced. Was she going crazy, or was there something more sinister at play? She couldn't find any logical explanation for what she had witnessed in the bathroom. The next morning, Oralua woke up with a feeling of dread in the pit of her stomach. She tried to push the events of the previous night out of her mind, focusing on her daily routine, but as she prepared to brush her teeth in front of the mirror, she couldn't shake the sense of unease that enveloped her. What if the person in the mirror was still there, watching her with that strange smile? She thought about avoiding the mirror entirely, but after taking a deep breath, Oralua forced herself to look in the mirror, and there it was again, the reflection of another person identical to her in every way, looking at her with a knowing gleam in its eyes. Oralua shuddered, feeling watched by a malevolent presence. She quickly finished brushing her teeth and ran out of the bathroom, avoiding her reflection at all costs. She dressed for school and waited for the school bus to arrive. When the bus finally came, T was at the entrance, blocking Oralua from getting on the bus. Her friend Kik, as usual, was busy talking with her friends and didn't notice Ora Lua, but a boy named Toby, who was Kik's boyfriend, intervened. He confronted T, demanding that he move out of the way and let Ora Lua pass. T, surprised by Toby's boldness, backed off, and Ora Lua was able to get on the bus to school. Ora Lua smiled because, for the first time in her life, someone had stood up for her. From that moment, she developed a crush on Toby, her friend's boyfriend. For a moment, she forgot all her worries until she arrived at school and saw a mirror. She immediately looked away, afraid of what she might see. She couldn't focus on anything else, the image of a doppelganger etched in her mind like a brand. The next day, Ora Lua avoided all the mirrors in the house while brushing her teeth and taking a shower. She was in high spirits because it was the school's anniversary. On this day, every year, the students gathered to celebrate the existence of the school and all its achievements over the years. Ora Lua had been looking forward to this day for weeks, carefully choosing the perfect red dress to wear to the party. As she entered the school, she couldn't help but admire how everyone was dressed for the occasion. The hall was decorated, creating a festive atmosphere. She spotted her friend Kik across the room, already boasting about wearing the most expensive outfit. Kik always loved to show off her wealth, and Ora Lua couldn't help but roll her eyes at her friend's antics. Despite everything on her mind, Ora Lua was determined to enjoy the party and have fun. The school principal took the stage and addressed the students. "All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy," the principal said at the end of his speech, and the party officially started with music playing and drinks and food being served to students and teachers. As the music filled the hall, students and teachers began to dance, forming groups and pairs on the dance floor. Ora Lua and Kik were also about to dance when they saw Toby, Kik's boyfriend, coming towards them. Kik abandoned Ora Lua without a second thought and ran to dance with Toby, leaving Ora Lua feeling lonely and out of place. Feeling a bit down, Ora Lua decided to get a drink and find a quiet corner to watch the party from afar. She sipped her drink slowly, trying to shake off the feeling of being left behind by her friend. Suddenly, a shadow loomed over her as she looked up to see T, the school bully, standing in front of her. Ora Lua's heart raced, and just as she was about to move away from that corner of the hall, T smiled at her and reached for her cup, deliberately spilling the drink on the floor in front of her. Without thinking, Ora Lua stepped forward but accidentally stepped on the spilled drink, causing her to lose her balance. She stepped on the long, beautiful red dress with her heel, and her dress tore. Before she could recover from the shock of her torn dress, a necklace of gold beads broke, and the beads scattered across the floor. The sound of Ora Lua's scream echoed through the hall, attracting everyone's attention. Some students started laughing, while others took out their phones to record. Toby saw what had happened and rushed to help her pick up the beads. Some teachers also came to assist and ask what had happened. T immediately lied, saying that Ora Lua had accidentally stepped on her own dress. As Ora Lua struggled to pick up the beads, even with Toby's help, she became frustrated and felt a mix of shame and anger growing inside her. She knew that T had deliberately made her a laughingstock, but she felt that no one would believe her. She started crying as she ran out of the hall. Ora Lua stumbled home still in tears, her heart heavy with shame and humiliation from what she had endured at the school party. As she entered the bathroom to wash away the remnants of the day, her gaze fell on the mirror, and she was about to look away when something inside her snapped. Instead of avoiding the reflection, Oralua approached the mirror. There was the person again, still smiling at her. A sense of familiarity but strangeness stirred her heart. Gathering all her courage, Oralua spoke to the figure in the mirror. "Who are you? Are you real? How do you have my face?" To her surprise, the figure replied, "My name is Omi. I am your twin sister." Oralua gasped. "What? That's not possible. You're just my imagination." "I assure you, I am real," Omi insisted. "You can ask our parents." Oralua's mind filled with disbelief and confusion. How could she have a twin sister she had never known about? As night fell, Oralua knew she couldn't wait until morning to confront her parents with this shocking revelation. When the first ray of sunlight streamed through the curtains, Oralua came down from her room. She checked the window and found that her father's car wasn't in the garage. A few minutes later, her mother entered the living room. Oralua greeted her and asked where her father was. Her mother, Itunu, said that her father had an early surgery scheduled and had to leave at dawn. Oralua tried to wait for her father's return, but she was so anxious to know the truth that she confronted her mother with the question that had tormented her all night. "Mom, do I have a twin sister?" she asked with a trembling voice. A look of shock spread across Itunu's face as she wondered why her daughter would ask such a question, and tears rolled down her cheeks. She sank into the sofa, her body shaken by silent sobs. "Yes, Oralua," she whispered. "You had a twin sister." Oralua's heart raced in her chest. "I had a twin sister, but why did you never tell me?" she demanded. Her mother's voice was soft and broken. "We wanted to forget that sad day to push away the pain. We thought it would be easier for us and for you if we pretended it never happened." "But you should have told me," Oralua protested. "I deserve to know." Her mother's eyes met hers, full of sorrow. "I know, my love. I'm so sorry." "What was she like?" Oralua asked, her curiosity and sadness overwhelming her. "She was beautiful, I think," her mother replied, her voice faltering. "I didn't get to see her." Itunu began to cry even more as she started to narrate the sad story. Oralua listened, tears welling up in her own eyes. She learned that her twin sister had been stillborn, leaving an impossible void in her heart and the painful absence of a sibling. "But if my sister died, who was that in the mirror?" "A ghost," Oralua thought to herself. Suddenly, the door opened, and her father walked in. When he realized that his wife had told everything to their daughter, he turned red with anger. "Why did you do that?" he shouted at his wife, Itunu. "Why did you bring that up again?" he added. They started a heated argument, their voices rising in accusations and anguish. Oralua quickly got up and ran to the bathroom. As she stood before the mirror, a tear fell from her eye, now knowing that Omi was truly her sister. Omi pleaded for her to stop crying. It was then that Oralua asked her sister, "Why are you here now and not many years ago? All these years, I grew up alone. Why didn't you find me then? Why now?" she cried. But her sister revealed that she had been watching her, witnessing all her struggles and suffering. Omi empathized with her sister's pain and anguish, feeling it deeply within her own being. "I saw everything you went through," Omi replied. "At school, the so-called friends who betrayed you, even your parents who failed to protect you," Omi added. Tears streamed down Oralua's face. I thought I was alone, she sobbed. If I had you, life could have been so different. A wave of sadness washed over Omi as she saw her twin sister crying. That's why I came. I'm here to help you get revenge, she said, joining her sister in tears. As Ora Lua innocently tried to touch her sister in the mirror, Omi did the same, and something magical happened. They switched places, with Ora Lua now inside the mirror and Omi in front of it, fully prepared for revenge. Ora Lua was quite shocked by the swap, but her sister assured her that everything was fine. Omi asked Ora Lua to give her 7 days to avenge all those who bullied and caused her pain. Before Ora Lua could say a word, Omi walked out of the bathroom. It was a school morning, and as Ora Lua's parents sat down for breakfast with their daughter, they couldn't help but notice a change in her behavior. Ora Lua usually had breakfast with her head down, her movements timid, but that particular morning, she sat upright, shoulders back, and a confident smile on her lips. Her father, She, couldn't help but raise an eyebrow in surprise. Well, he said with a laugh. Look at that, Ora Lua, someone seems to have found her confidence overnight, he added. Omi had a mischievous smile followed by a cold look on her face as she watched her father play the fool. Her mother, Etunu, watched her daughter with a mixture of amusement and curiosity. What's gotten into you, dear? She asked gently. Omi shrugged, still with a small smile on her lips. I don't know, Mom. I just feel different today, more confident, I guess. She laughed and took a sip of his tea. Well, whatever it is, I like it. Keep it up, Ora Lua. It suits you, he added. As they continued breakfast, She and Etunu had no idea that the confident and charismatic young girl sitting at the table with them was actually Omi, not Ora Lua. The infamous school bully was up to his usual antics as he boarded the school bus. He casually placed his leg in the aisle, a move he often used to annoy and intimidate Ora Lua. However, today was different. As Omi walked down the aisle towards her seat, she came across T's outstretched leg. T and his group of bullies were watching, waiting to laugh at her reaction as usual. Move your leg, Omi said firmly, her voice tinged with a hint of anger. T was taken aback. Ora Lua had never stood up to him like this before. He glanced nervously at his friends and then back at Omi. He couldn't back down now, not in front of his friends. He would be labeled a loser. No way, T retorted, a malicious grin on his face. Omi's eyes narrowed as she took a step closer to T. Without hesitation, she kicked T's leg aside. The entire bus fell silent as they watched the scene unfold. Omi stood tall, a look of defiance in her eyes. Without another word, she walked past T and took a seat. The bus erupted in applause and cheers. T, on the other hand, was left humiliated and defeated. The tables had turned on him, and for the first time, he felt like the victim. His friends now laughed and mocked his misfortune, quickly turning against him. T spent the whole day feeling uneasy, thinking of ways to get back at Omi, whom he thought was Ora Lua. Upon arriving at school, Ora Lua's friend Kik, who only liked to talk to her when it made her feel good and on top of the world, started following her around the school, suddenly acting nice just because she wanted to share in the attention Omi was getting for standing up to T, the bully. Kik's friendship with Ora Lua always seemed like a servant and master relationship in Omi's eyes, so she decided Kik would be the first on her revenge list. Omi knew exactly how to make Kik pay. Kik had a big secret she kept from everyone at school, even her boyfriend, Toby. The secret was that she didn't have rich parents as she always claimed. Kik was just the daughter of the maid in Mr. and Mrs. Agab's mansion, and the couple, being philanthropists, took good care of her, sending her to the best schools money could buy and buying her the best of everything. So, Omi decided to expose Kik's dirty secrets. That day, after school, Omi bought a pack of A4 papers and wrote down all the details of Kik's lies in bold red ink, titling the text, Imposter Kik, the maid's daughter. Omi sneaked back into the school at night and pasted about 150 copies all over the school. The next day, everyone had a copy in their hands, and Kik's web of lies was exposed for all to see. When she arrived at school and saw everyone looking at her, she thought it was because of her new backpack until she noticed the papers in everyone's hands. She picked up a copy from the floor for herself and read what was written. Kik couldn't believe her secret was out and ran home in shame. Omi laughed because her plan had worked perfectly and couldn't wait to share the news with her twin sister, Oralua, but she quickly changed her mind because she felt that Oralua, being a gentle person, might have issues with her style of plans. So, she decided not to look in the mirror until she was done with everyone on her revenge list. The next person was her father. She thought deeply about how to ruin his life forever. That afternoon, Omi visited her father at his workplace in the hospital. He was busy kissing a woman in his office when he received a call from the receptionist informing him of his daughter's presence. He was surprised to hear this and quickly told the strange woman to dress up and leave. Omi shook her head as she saw the woman buttoning her shirt while leaving her father's office. She knew he would never change and was counting on this for her revenge to work. Her father came out a few minutes later, smiling, and took her to his office. Omi smiled back and said she just wanted to surprise him with a visit. He sent a staff member to get food and drinks for his daughter before he left to check on some of his patients. As soon as he left the office, Omi opened her backpack and took out a camera she had bought earlier. She placed it in a strategic yet discreet spot in her father's office and turned it on. The next day, she pretended to bring a homemade meal for her father. She hugged his daughter tightly, grateful for how much she cared for him. Oralua, I keep repeating, I like this new you. You take care of me more than your mother, he said aloud. Omi had a malicious smile on her face as she watched him eat, and when the opportunity arose, she retrieved the camera she had left in his office. She hurried home and watched the footage on Oralua's laptop, and just as she had wanted and predicted, there was her father in the video, exchanging his services as a body sculptor and plastic surgeon for romantic relationships with his female patients. This was bad for his career, and that was exactly why Omi chose this. She immediately put the memory card containing the video in a brown envelope. She also made sure to add a photo of her father's ID card and international passport. Omi sent this to the Professional Discipline Department of the MDC. The next day at school was the first day of exams, and it was time for the next person on Omi's revenge list, T, the bully. Omi had already set a trap and was just waiting for the results. She stood where T could see her at school, near his locker, and just as she predicted, T saw her and began threatening to get back at her for humiliating him in front of his friends on the bus the other day. Omi made sure to get close enough to him and, when she had the perfect opportunity, slipped a paper into his pocket while he was busy intimidating her in front of everyone. When the time for the exam came, Omi kept staring at T. She did this very obviously, and T stared back at her. After the proctor distributed the question and answer sheets, Omi quickly finished her test and continued staring at T until he got tired and reported her to one of the proctors. When Mr. Adogo asked what the problem was, Omi shouted that T was copying answers from a paper in his pocket. This accusation caught everyone's attention in the hall, and Mr. Adogo asked T to stand up. He thoroughly searched him and discovered a white paper with the exact answers to the exam they were taking. T opened his mouth in surprise. He told Mr. Adogo that he didn't know how the paper got into his pocket, and the other students laughed. No one believed him. Omi laughed in his face, and T accused her of putting the paper in his pocket. This made Mr. Adogo very angry, to the point that he searched all the students in that row. Mr. Adogo and other teachers searched the students, and the unexpected happened. Carefully written answers to the exam they were taking were found on Toby's left thigh. The hall became very noisy. Everyone was surprised to catch Toby in such a dishonorable act, but one person felt instant regret, and that person was Omi. If she had known that Toby would be exposed, she wouldn't have used this method of revenge against T, because Toby was the only person who stood up for Oralua, her twin sister, against the bullies. Omi started to panic. She went home very sad and didn't know how to undo what she had done. What would she tell her twin sister, Oralua? She only hoped that Toby would get a miracle. The 7 days demanded by Omi were ending, but she couldn't look at her twin sister in the mirror. Her school, being one that prides itself on zero tolerance for cheating, immediately formed a committee, and 2 days later, T and Toby were expelled from the school for cheating during the exams. Omi cried a lot as she went to the bathroom to explain things to her twin sister. Upon hearing the summary of most of the events that Omi had orchestrated in the past few days, Oralua got angry at her twin sister. She felt that Omi had overreacted. Our father is still our father. What you did to him is too much, said Oralua angrily. He is not my father, retorted Omi to her twin sister. She then narrated how their father abandoned her in the trash when she was born deformed, which led to her premature death. Oralua started to cry. She didn't know their father was so horrible. I'm sorry for what you went through at his hands. I'm so sorry, said Oralua in tears. There's more, replied Omi before summoning the courage to tell her twin sister about what had happened to Toby. Oralua screamed, and they both cried a lot. I'm sorry, Oralua. I didn't mean to involve Toby, said Omi in tears, but Oralua was too heartbroken to listen. Meanwhile, that same day, she, their father, had to face the disciplinary committee of the Medical and Dental Council, and due to the overwhelming evidence presented to the committee, his medical license was revoked. Our profession is noble and has no place for such practices, said one of the members of the disciplinary committee before reading the verdict. And that was the end of Shei's career. Still emotional, Omi touched the mirror, and the twins returned to their original positions.